executive encounter. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to for quite some time. But before we get into that, let's say a particular welcome to our trustees, our management committee or joint forum members, our investment and human capital professionals, our advisors, regulators, and any press who might be joining this conversation today. Particularly, thank you very much, Linda. Particularly welcome and thank you to our sponsors for today, Discovery. And while we're talking of that, I think it's important that before we get into the conversation, I share with you that we at EBnet are very proud to bring you quality content that we don't actually charge you for. And it's all with the intention and with the purpose of moving the needle and helping those South Africans and those retirement fund members to improve their retirement outcomes. So to help us do that, we need your support. If you could perhaps join us by subscribing to our newsletters or following us on our various socials, that would be very much appreciated. And that'll help us keep bringing you such great content like today's. I think before we start, I see many of you have already learned or seen the chat facility on the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to post any questions that you might have for Nonku while we're having our conversation, and feel free to interact with both of us in what I'm hoping will be a very, very interactive and entertaining conversation. Before we get into it, let's hear from our sponsors, Discovery, with a quick video.
The world of business has changed. It's harder, faster, and fiercely competitive. There is no room for ordinary. At Discovery Corporate and Employee Benefits, we believe your employee benefits should work as hard as you do. We provide 3 essential products with advanced features to help employees live better, work better, and retire better. Group risk, umbrella funds, healthy company. We don't just see people for who they are at work, but who they are at home too. Our next generation benefits are designed for all generations, ensuring every employee thrives today, tomorrow, and into the future. Visit us to find out more. discovery.co.za/business.
Welcome, Nonkululeko Pitje, the CEO of Discovery Corporate and Employee Benefits.
Hello, Natalie. So good to be with you today.
Thank you. By way of an introduction, I will say that Nonku, as she prefers to be called, is a seasoned leader with over 20 years experience in solving business problems across a variety of functional areas. In fact, Nonku, you've been described as a powerhouse who was born to lead. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to for a long time, since we had our initial chats around this. And I'm looking forward particularly to exploring your leadership journey, the workings of her mind, the most important lessons, both business and personal, that have shaped her journey. So Nonku, welcome to our executive encounter.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
So let's start with at the beginning of Nonku. And perhaps we can unpack a bit of your youth, where you grew up, and some of your earlier memories.
Well, Natalie, born and bred in Soweto. I was actually born in Baragwanath Hospital. Those are my early years. I must be honest, I always think very fondly of that time. I remember a distinct sense of community, collaboration, a clarity of who I was, and in the context of what was happening at the time, sort of being born with a very strong sense around equality, equity, and what was happening in terms of activism in the country at the time. So I must say, I've always felt superbly blessed, both from the time that I was born and the time into what I was born, and an understanding and appreciation of what it is today to, I guess, have a free and democratic country.
If you think back on those early years, did you always stand out as a natural leader? I mean, I'm not going to lie, I did stalk you before the session. And the word out on the street from people who know you and have worked with you describe you as this very interactive and charismatic leader. Have you always stood out as that, or is it something that you've learned?
Reflecting on that question, I think what was always very clear to me is that I just leaned into opportunity from very early on. So I think I had very strong role models. I was born into strong matriarchs in particular. Even when things were very hard, they never seemed that way because I think I had a mother and a grandmother that always created a sense of possibility and a sense of confidence. And later on in life, having had the opportunity to go to a multiracial school, there were tons of things that I'd never seen. I think the field at my multiracial school was as big as what my old school was in the township environment. And so all I did was actually just lean into opportunity. So I took part in almost every sporting activity. I was in cultural activities. And I think that sort of participating openly and taking hold of opportunity is where I started to sort of find my leadership muscle. Because as you lean in, you find places and ways to contribute. And so from school years, sort of being in leadership roles, being the deputy head girl, being the softball captain, netball captain, being in and sort of debating, etc., I went into university with that muscle already started to be trained. So in university, I also then went into the different committees and going for the Commerce Student Council, being the president of ISEC, and that then sort of transitioned into the workplace. So I actually think that leadership is a muscle. I think we're blessed if you are in a family that pushes you and enables you and then get into other environments that do that. And I was blessed to be in a family that did that, in a school that enabled that, and later on in work environments that enable that. And the more you train a muscle, the better the muscle becomes and the better you can use it.
Such great stories. I mean, off the top of my head, what was your favorite sport at school?
Well, netball. Netball was my favorite. Softball, I played at a regional level, so I also enjoyed that. Unfortunately, swimming just didn't take hold. Just, I think, because of exposure previously and not having a swimming pool. And that's where I called it. But yeah, I think netball and softball.
Well done for trying. I love this concept that you talk about of leaning in, and it has been a topic of a couple of leadership books. But before we get to the leadership of Nonku and your journey there, what made you or drew you to the work that you do?
To be honest, Natalie, I think I'm going to simply say God and opportunity. I left university and I went into management consulting, probably because it just offered a breadth of opportunity in terms of working in different industries and learning different capabilities. But when I landed in Discovery, to be honest, I've probably had about 7 or 8 roles within the business. I just did the best that I could at any one opportunity. And then I let the business send me where the business believed I could add the most value. So there's a sense in me of sort of gratitude around always sort of following this sort of optimistic and almost naive way in terms of how one has gone from one opportunity to another. And I also think that being in a purpose-driven organization with clear value, or values rather, and knowing that you're always contributing to something that is significant, that changes people's lives, to shared value. I actually had no issue around where I have been put in the organization. I've always found wherever the organization has deployed me has been a place of profound contribution and impact to society and to our clients. So really, I followed the opportunity with open arms.
How long have you been at Discovery for?
20 years and counting. It's a lifetime. I think young people these days think, what is she thinking? Is there nothing else out there? But 20 years, and it's been a fantastic journey, I won't lie. I often say my blood runs blue, and I often wear blue underwear to support that.
Look, we did want to get to know you a little bit more intimately today, but I think that's a little bit more than we intended to go. But you actually touched on something that when I was stalking you online, was one of the things I thought about, and that is your length of service at Discovery, which ostensibly, certainly in my case, is longer than most marriages. And we can get onto that later because we know we've got some commonalities there too. but it is unusual. What has kept you there?
Yeah, firstly, you're right. It runs longer than most marriages, including my own, unfortunately. But God has been good, and there's been other opportunities in that space. But you know, there's a magic about choosing and being in the right organization. And I think for me, probably Discovery has 4 things that would make me choose it over and over and over again, and probably would make me stay even longer. Then the first one is purpose. We have a very clear and simple purpose, you know, to enhance and protect lives, which is a purpose that is enduring now and into the future, because without life and without health, we have very little. I think in the second instance, we are a value-based organization, and those values are aligned in most cases to my own values. And so it's been a place where I found home from a perspective that there's an alignment in many ways. The third for me is that it's been a superbly enabling environment. I've been able to, I often say, play at Discovery, because I've had the opportunity to literally play so many roles and exercise so many muscles and learn so much, almost from cradle to grave, around how we build products, how we market products, how we package them, how we go into operations. I've been in the people space and led the HR space within Discovery Health. I've had the opportunity to run a whole sort of end-to-end entity and bring new products into the market. And I think when you've got a place that allows creativity, innovation, implementation, and a breadth of sort of skills that you want to learn at your fingertips, and as you do, you're trusted with more, you want to stay. And I think the final one is probably people. I honestly believe we work with the smartest, most determined, most hardworking people at Discovery. And it actually it's irrelevant what level in the organization the person is in, you know, from the entry-level staff members to the most senior leadership. You just find that everyone who's there is really special and is really there to give of their all. And sometimes I don't know how the organization gets so much from people and from all of us, but there's something really special there. So if you ask me, I'm probably more fearful to being in an organization that I don't believe is playing the A game and is being an A player. And I will stay with an A player playing an A game that is also making a distinct and superb difference in society and in the world, actually, at this present moment in time.
It leads me to kind of a thought, which is around youngsters who, I mean, I've got one myself, young adults who are joining the workplace now. He's about to graduate. What would you say are the top 3 things a youngster should look for in the organization that they choose to work for once leaving university?
It's a superb question, and it is because my own kids are now in high school and nearing a time when they have to be making choices like that. I think the first one is that you've got to be able to, before you even think about the organization, you've got to think about what is it that you want to contribute and where are you in flow. And I talk about the word in flow because I find a lot of the time, unless you know who you are and what you bring to the table and what will work for you, there'll probably be a struggle. So that is something I learned later on in my career, but it's power to be in flow. And it allows you to then fit into a lot of environments as long as you fit into the right role. So the first one would be, even before the organization, where would I be in flow? What type of role and contribution do I want to make? I think the second for me will be, look for an organization that is looking beyond the bottom line in the traditional sense. So that's looking beyond the return on equity for its investors or the share, or always tracking the share price. Look for an organization that's got soul, that's got heart, and that's got clarity in terms of who it's trying to be and what it's trying to do in the world. That would be my second one. And then the third one, which is today, I think, quite important. Look at how progressive an organization is in terms of understanding, adapting, and using innovation, particularly in the digital space. I think we're all different levels in the digital world in our digital journey. But certainly if an organization is not talking about AI and not talking about LLMs and not talking about how we are using these into the future to serve our clients and to serve society, that's probably a dark space where you don't want to be. It's not a company that's looking to be in the future in a way that's quite meaningful.
Before we get into the business questions, which I'm going to explore with you now, I want to share with those on the call that when Nonku and I got together for the first time to discuss and see what we could talk about in today's session, one of the very first questions she in fact asked me was how many weeks am I? And before you all have serious heart failure that refers to pregnancy or start looking for some weight I might be putting up on my face, I knew exactly what she was talking about. And I'm happy to say my answer wasn't embarrassing. And if you want to know the answer, you'll have to wait till a little bit later. but heading into the business kind of aspects of what you do, and you touched on it briefly, but maybe we can get into it in a little bit more detail. What are the future things and ideas and trends that you imagine in the employee benefits space?
You know, I want to flip that a little bit, Natalie. And I know we didn't talk about this, but I want to check in with you. Do you think that there's been major changes and leaps forward in the employee benefit space in the last, say, 10 years? And if there are, can you think of one at the top of your head in terms of how we're thinking about employee benefits?
Nonku, we didn't practice the other way around questions, but
I know.
Yeah. But I'd have to say, and it's interesting because I was reflecting on the news of the week as I was looking at what we've posted on our platforms during this week, and it has struck me that no, and if that might sound a bit cynical, no, we haven't really done anything particularly innovative.
Yeah, and I guess that would be exactly what I see in terms of going forward. That's exactly the answer I have. And, you know, even before I was in this space, so before I was in this space, I was the Chief Growth Officer in our health business. And in that space, we were doing exceptional work, thinking about inclusivity in the healthcare space, thinking about those that have been sort of excluded for a while. How do we bring them in? How do we bring the cost curve down, etc.? And coming into the employee benefit space, what struck me is the truth was, as a recipient of employee benefits myself in a work environment, I thought, my goodness, I don't know a lot about my own benefits and how they come alive for me. Two, how they help me on a daily basis, not at certain points in time, you know, either time of disability, time of death, or time of retirement. Like, how are they a meaningful part of my life? And so when I think about employee benefits and how my executive committee and I are sort of conceptualizing and where we put in work, effort, money, and energy, it's around the fact that employee benefits need to work as hard for employees as employees work for our businesses. They need to be brought into the forefront, meaning into today, helping people work better, live better, and retire better. We need to find a way that engages people in a meaningful way, but more importantly, on our innovation agenda and R&D agenda, we're looking at what are the burning issues that are affecting employees on a daily basis, which means it affects productivity, affects presenteeism, affects absenteeism, and affects just the quality of human that you get into the workplace. And we're thinking about things like debt, which is huge. I mean, South Africans are highly indebted and the consumer is highly indebted and the employer doesn't have a solution of how to deal with that. Mental health on the increase in this country, unfortunately, also issues of GBV. Where do we play a role using employee benefits as a chassis to deliver to employees? So really what we're looking at is we've got to have employee benefits that are helping employers and employees with the challenges and the complexities that they're navigating today. And it cannot be an event in the future that nobody is engaging with.
Such a great answer. And I mean, it talks to some of the help that Two-Pot has in fact introduced into our worlds, right? So now you can use a portion of your retirement benefits now to help you with issues and financial difficulties that you may be experiencing right now. And the debt levels, you're 100% right, are worrying. I was looking at some stats earlier today around the number of people in debt, and not only the number of people in debt, but how long outstanding that debt is in terms of the latest research, and so valuable. Can you see a world where perhaps more discretionary, easy to access type of, let's call them cheaper products are available?
Definitely. I mean, I see a world, and I'll tell you the world that we're in without disclosing too much about the world because we're deep in an R&D cycle. But I see a world where we're using the current benefits to unlock ways to support employees with their debt and really creating a step change in terms of where people land. I mean, I was talking, I think a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, a different interview, I think on business TV, around the fact that we are completely sandwich society. But actually, I likened it to be a pie society, where sandwich talks about the top and the bottom. And when I think about my own life, it's not just the top and the bottom, there's also the sides. You're supporting kids, you're supporting parents at the bottom, you're supporting cousins and aunts and relatives. And people are just in such a conundrum in terms of debt. So we are thinking very broadly around how do we use what we see from trends, like what are people taking out their Two-Pot savings to use? And how do we use the ecosystem, which in our case also includes a bank, includes an EAP to support people with financial coaching, includes financial courses, and includes the capability for us to maybe bring money forward in a responsible way while we're helping people really change their lives and create a step change. So we're thinking about how to use our entire ecosystem to bring financial solutions and relief to the table financially while we support people from a financial, I guess, coaching and emotional coaching perspective while they go through their journey. And hopefully one day that sandwich stroke pie becomes maybe a one-sided sandwich only, where you're supporting just the children, because not our children don't have to support us, into the future.
There's a whole lot of questions we can talk about there that are probably not appropriate for this webinar. but I'm going to go there because you did, and the issue around Discovery Bank. Obviously Discovery Vitality, and that has something to do, here's a spoiler alert about my number of weeks, but Discovery Vitality, your umbrella fund and your employee benefits, your employee benefit value proposition. And about this very well-known, I want to call it strapline that Discovery has on shared value. And there are cynics in the industry and in the kind of community at large who might say that shared value is just a fancy way of saying a one-stop shop, and there's kind of cross-pollination or cross-subsidies between businesses. What would you say to people who might be saying that out there?
I think what is very fortunate about shared value is that it's no longer just a rhetoric. I mean, there's been lots of now papers written by credible people and institutions who studied shared value as a standalone and can demonstrate the power and impact of shared value. In addition to that, we are very fortunate in this country and through the organization I work for to have shared value. But actually the shared value model, just to give you a sense of its impact and power, is the reason in most instances we've expanded in other countries. So it's been, as an example, life insurers in Asia saying, we understand the power of getting people healthier, driving mortality and mobility in quite a powerful way through using healthcare and healthcare tools and rewards in order to drive the right behavior change, please come partner with us, because we can see that you will create a distinct shift and change in our own underlying risk, which will lead obviously to brilliant returns for the actual business. So for me, it's quite simple. I would say spend some time just understanding it, do it using, I guess, independent resources if you think that it's just a rhetoric. Maybe lastly, let me just say, I know what shared value is doing in my life as a client. And so I'm not talking as a CEO of Discovery Health, but I see how behavioral economics drive me to, as an example, make sure that I exercise every day. I look at my outcomes. Then I look at what the reward is that I've been given. And then circling into that is my own well-being and my longevity. So I'm a recipient of shared value in my own personal life, and I'm completely hooked. And then to add, Natalie, you have 300 streaks. So you are like an incredible active person. So that means that you have not missed a week of exercise, as we've defined it, for the past 300 weeks. That's incredible. Why do you do it? Do you see the shared value in your life?
Look, I mean, I hate to brag, but it's actually 338. That's the number of weeks.
Oh, that is incredible. That is incredible.
Thank you. But to just dispel any rumors that may come up here, this is not. I don't strap my my fitness tracking device to my dog. It is definitely a very important part of life. Is this kind of whole, the whole image of a person, and looking after your health, which then flows into your work, which then flows into your health, which then flows into other aspects. And yeah, so you caught me out there. I do enjoy the fitness trackers and playing my game board and all of that. But back to you.
Back to me, but congratulations, 338 is superb.
Yeah, send chocolates, not t-shirts, chocolates. I saw in the one bio that you posted somewhere your reference to Malcolm Gladwell, who is one of my favorite authors, I'm not going to lie, and in specific reference to his 10,000-hour rule, where you've described your leadership journey, and you touched on it earlier in your intro, where you said it's made up of practice, and more practice. What are some of the more defining moments that you've had in your career that has shaped your role as the leader that you are today?
I like that question a lot. Thank you for that. I often say, and I said it earlier, I think we work with some of the smartest people. And I often say what differentiates one person from another is really the amount of effort one exerts. And the effort comes in the form of practicing, meaning doing and doing and doing more. And the more you do, the more proficient you become. The more proficient you become, the greater impact you can have. And for me, and what really I think has landed me in the position that I am today is exactly that kind of concept. I've been able and been given an opportunity and a conducive environment that's allowed me to practice. I've worked in operations and I've led in operations. That's practice. I've led and I've worked in the HR space. I've led and I've worked in the strategic risk management space. I've worked and I've led in new markets. And the new markets opportunity in particular was because I wanted to learn how to really run a business from cradle to grave. It was, how do we design our products? How do we price these financial services products? How do we package them? How do we take it to market? How do we create these distribution channels, and which ones work the best? How do we pivot? How do we respond to competition in the market? And that is practice. And so I got in the belly of an organization, got to build several products that were new to market, were augmenting the revenue of the business, were growing robustly. And that is practice. And so when the opportunity came in this space, and we're looking to sort of consolidate our B2B play and start creating at scale these products that will help employers and employees, I had just had so much practice, either being a functional specialist in one area or actually being a general manager across a business and managing multiple P&Ls and being able to practice and become proficient at it. So really for me, the power of being brilliant is don't always worry about whether you're going up always, because that's a mistake. Even going across and getting different skills and practicing your different leadership and muscles, as well as, I guess, functional leadership muscles can be quite a powerful thing to do. So lots of practice, and I think the practice really has landed me where I am today in the discovery business.
This concept of practice is such a good one. And if I think about my own life and some of the things that I've achieved, not only in my career, but what always gets to me is how difficult it is to overcome the fear. So you talk about grabbing opportunities and leaning in, but sometimes there is, a real sense of fear, like, what if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? Have you got some reflections or some thoughts around that, and how in your own life you overcome some of that?
Yeah, the whole notion of sort of the imposter syndrome is really real. I think it's real, especially if you're a minority in the group, and it could be a minority because you are the only female in the group, or a minority because of your color, or whatever the case may be. So, and it's been, for me, I learned much earlier on in life. I do a lot of self-work, self-improvement work. I read a hell of a lot. I often say 2 to 3 books a month, and it's different genres, but always around sort of, the area of expertise I would like to gain, a lot of stuff around the kind of habits that drive key outcomes and success. And I also have been quite focused on getting always the basics right. You have your 338 streaks, but no matter what the day is, especially if I've got big meetings or a board meeting, the notion of making sure that you exercise, you meditate, you prepare, just always getting the basics right. So to be honest, to answer the question more directly, I've never had great fears about what could go wrong, because many things go wrong, as some brought on by yourself, some brought on by the world in life, both in your personal life and in your work life. What I've really focused on is, how do I prepare myself to be in the best possible space, mindset, etc., to respond to those things that happen in life. And what I found is that the most beautiful thing has been, everything is a lesson. Out of everything, something can come. Even the hardest things. We talked briefly when we met about our divorce journeys. And I often say that was one of the biggest blessings of my life. Anybody who's been through a divorce is the hardest thing, one of the hardest things you can go through. It tests you emotionally, mentally, and often physically. You get physically sick going through the process. But what came out of it is sort of strength of character, resilience, clarity of direction, who I wanted to be in the world and who I wanted my girls to see me as in the context of all of that. So for me, I don't think you can determine the future and what you can fail from. All you can do is make sure that you're empowering yourselves in all sorts of different ways to be ready to stand up to any challenge that comes.
My favorite saying in the world is feel the fear and do it anyway, right? Do it scared. Because it's the only way that you
feel the fear and do it anyway.
The only way that you practice this kind of muscle that you're talking about, be it resilience or presenting. It filters into every aspect of your life. I wanted to delve into something that you've written yourself somewhere, where you talk about your 3 key success factors, and you may have written it some time ago, so I'll remind you what they are. The effort you exert, the company you keep, and the people that matter. And the company you keep, share some of that for us.
The company you keep, for me, actually translates in your work life and your home life. And it really talks about the environments you put yourselves you put yourself in, and how those environments either elevate you or deplete you. And when I think of a work environment, and I described earlier, so I won't go into the detail of that, I feel just driving into the basement of work, always an energy and an excitement and just an ability to feel almost in the air the possibilities, because that's the environment that I work in and the people that I work with. And I find it's exactly the same at home. You know, you cannot be in a toxic environment at home, where, as an example, you're experiencing gender-based violence and be a brilliant person who contributes and who is positive in the world. So for me, it's so important to always check on, am I in the right place with the right people? And I think, therefore, the saying when people often say, you know, people don't leave a business, they leave people, or they leave the environment. It's the same in a home environment. You know, you stay when you are being uplifted and energized, and you leave when you're not. And I think it's such an important thing to look at. Am I still fitting here? Is this still enabling and is still elevating? Doesn't mean you like it every day, just like you don't like everybody at work every day, or you don't like a decision that is made. But overall, is this an enabling and engaging environment?
It's one day when I write a book, it's one of the lessons that I tell my children, and that is that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. So make sure you choose those people wisely, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think maybe to touch on your comment that you made about your girls, and you often talk about being a visionary, or women being female visionary leaders. How have you personally, in your world and in your career, navigated the sometimes challenges that are introduced by being a woman? And that may be, you know, your perceptions around you in the boardroom, but then also the kind of home responsibilities. And I hate asking fellow females this, but what have you experienced around this, and how have you dealt with it?
Yeah. You know, I guess the first word for me is authenticity. That you have to, I think there's such a power in who women authentically are, in all environments that they present themselves in. We lead a lot with intuition, and often the intuition is correct, because we see, we observe, we feel, and that's something we reflect. We often lead with kindness. And I think kindness is, in fact, in today's world, is so important. And we also lead with a lot of courage. You know, it's courageous to sit in a boardroom where there aren't many of you, and you find the courage to find your voice and to put your opinion across, where people look different, feel different, but you know that your contribution is important and it's valid. So for me, I think, Natalie, what's been important is just lead as a woman. That's who you are. And when you bring those characteristics in the workplace, and in fact, there was a study that McKinsey did around the attributes of women leadership and how powerful they are, especially in a world that we live in, where you live in a hybrid society in how we work. You live in a place where there's a lot of emotional and mental issues that are brought into the workplace. And if you can lead where people can see that you're authentically someone who hears, who wants to listen, who acknowledges challenges, who acknowledges that their voice is not the only voice that could be additive, who, while you're democratic, you still take a decision and can lead people forward. So both in the work environment, in the home environment, I've learned to just lead as a woman and lean into those attributes that make me unique, but make me strong in a very different way. I guess the second thing I would like to say is it's also important, the visible leadership, because we cannot be what we don't see. So I knew, as an example, why my appointment was super important to me and amazing to me. I felt like I was secondary. I knew how important and the signal it was sending to every woman in the business that it is possible, we can, and not only we can, the environment is saying, yes, you can, and we recognize you and we welcome you here. So that for me is also important, which is why I lean into it as well, which is why I will come to EBnet and have this conversation, and I'll go to many other spaces, because the more women can see who we are, what we bring into the environment is not only additive, it can create step changes and it builds the world. I want to say the last thing. We are leaders in society because we create and lead in homes. Women across the world are the leaders, most instances in homes, whether by choice or by circumstance, because you become a single-headed household. And therefore, we create communities, and from our families, we create communities, communities create societies. So it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we lean into that. And that we create magic so that our children can take the baton and even do more in the world.
It leads beautifully into something I was thinking about, and also being a mother of a girl. Well, she's a young lady right now. Around the focus on what is called, it's in schools and educational institutions, these kind of STEM subjects, and STEM is really science, technology, engineering, and maths, which Nonku for president, look at that in the chat bar, which is really typically, the boys do that and girls do this. How in your parenting are you talking to your girls around, not making them jaded, or not exposing them to issues that they may not even be aware of, right? They don't know that they can't do maths until someone tells them, really. But how are you raising your girls to be able to believe this thing, or to have this belief that they are capable?
Yeah, sure. It's been a very important thing to me for a very long time. So when I got divorced, I really did worry about, how the girls, because I also have two teenage girls, one 14, one 16. How do the girls perceive me different to their father? How do they perceive women in general and the role of women in the world? And just to give context, so my ex-husband, and we get along very well, is a well-established businessman. He runs his own organization, and they've always known that. And so I've been very deliberate in the girls seeing my journey and understanding my journey. They've always known that mommy works, and mommies can choose different things. So I make sure that they understand that different mommies are important in different ways because of their contribution, whether it's contributing directly to their kids because they're stay-at-home moms, or contributing differently because they're working moms. But I've also found opportunities. I've had many opportunities to talk and just impart some of what I've learned on different platforms. And sometimes I would take them and they'd be like, "She's mommy, there were so many people and they're all listening to you." And for me, the power is really role modeling. I bring them sometimes to the office so that they can see, this is the business we run. These are all the ladies who run it with us. And this is mommy's office. And this is, so I've simply led by them being able to observe and being able to see. And if you can see, then you can imagine. You don't actually have to join the dots. They can join the dots themselves. On the flip side, I'm also a very tough mom. So I'm the type of mom for Mother's Day who is very clear that Mother's Day is a time for you to think about and give back to your mother, recognize what your mother does. So I don't let them off easy. I'm quite clear about, this is what love means to me on Mother's Day, and this is what you'll give me. I often ask them about their goals, and it was such a heartwarming thing for my daughter to be like, "Mommy, we don't have to have this conversation." This was my 14-year-old. I had 2 goals this year. One was to get into the squash regional team for the Eastern Cape, and the other one was to get all 80% plus for all my subjects. I've accomplished the first one. The second one, I'm well on track. And I was so blown away. I was like, firstly, the simplicity of the goals, the clarity, the understanding that she has to work towards it, and then coming out of it. And I often verbalize, I think you're smart, I think you're brilliant, I think you're going to contribute brilliantly to the world. But in order to be able to do that, you need to practice. So you need to start doing now, because you'll never do it as an adult. So I found just different facets, one being role modeling, one being pushing and saying you must contribute today to me, to other people in society, and 3, through affirmation of what I see in the girl child and what I think they can do in the world.
So I have a son and a daughter. And just to share my own experiences while we're talking about this, I struggle with, when I talk to my daughter, to not, what's the words I'm looking for? To not say men or women are less than or more than. And so it's an interesting dynamic in a household that has 2 different genders of kids. Do you find your kind of girls are going, girls rule and boys drool?
Oh, not at all. And actually, for me, the comparison has never been relevant. And the reason for that is that I think the world has always put a spotlight on boys. They are thought, yes, you're the one who's going to be a doctor. And you're the one, I think naturally, and it's actually reflected on us in so many ways. You put on the television and the man on TV, is the pediatrician, the doctor, not the doctor, the lawyer in LA Law. Can you see I'm showing my age? Is a man. So I actually think that the world has created such an enabling environment for many boy children already. And so all we have to do, I think, if we're parents that have boys and girls, is continue to affirm it, because it's reflected in so many ways, in so many places. Where for girl children, I think we have to be deliberate. The world is simply still very unequal. And so we need to start to compensate for the equality. My kids have a brother from their father's side. He's remarried and they've got a brother. And I've actually it never comes out as a competition of genders. More, I've done this, or I get to do this, and you're celebrating one child or the other.
Lovely. We are running out of time, so I want to ask a last wrap-up question, and while I'm doing that, encourage folks on the chat. I see they're so complimentary and are sending such wonderful comments and feedback. But if you do have any questions, while I ask Nonku the last couple of questions, feel free to post your thoughts and questions you might have. But Nonku, as we wrap up, and we've spoken about a lot, business, your particular business, your views of the industry, your parenting, what is the legacy you hope to leave?
I saw that question, and to be honest, it's so hard to have an answer. And so what I thought about, because I don't know where life will take me, and I hope I'll continue to lean into the opportunities that life gives me to contribute to society. And maybe Natalie, to say, before I was in this role, like I said, I was in the health business. And I remember the thing that was driving me at the time is I wanted to expand healthcare to 1 million more lives who've never had healthcare through the health insurance product, and that really, it consumed me. I dreamt about it. I thought about it, because that was the way in which I was contributing at the time. Sitting in this space today, I can tell you that I want to change the way in which my children experience the world. And by my children, and in extension, I mean every other child, Black, white, Indian, colored, that they have a different start in life. So if we can change the savings rate, as an example, in the retirement space from the 6% it's been for so many years to even 10%, it's another child who doesn't have to take care of a parent while they take care of their own children and try to survive and do something in the world. So it's really to change the financial outcomes of people that we look after, is to create a step change where people can really retire better and realize a better life. And hopefully when you talk to me in 10 years' time, there's something else in another arena that I've found that really drives me. So the legacy really is in the places that I'm in, that I create enough of an impact that somebody's life is changed. And hopefully God will give me so many more opportunities to find different spaces and places to do that.
It's a lovely thought or intention with which to arrive at work every day. How am I and what I'm doing impacting the lives of the people around me, and then by extension the community around me. We do have a question from Leon saying, what is your opinion on the role of large business in influencing the country and how it is run?
Sure. We are actually, and I say we, that's actually firstly an excellent question, because I think all of us need to lean in, especially where our country is right now. And I think there are many different dimensions and ways in which we do this. Maybe at the highest level, and we're very involved because we're blessed to have, I guess, a leader like Adrian, who takes it very seriously, sort of our contribution to society, that Discovery is seen as an organization that not only is a great business, but an important beacon in our country, in society, and in infusing hope. And one of the big things that I think has come from like us working in that space and understanding is we have a big role to play around the narrative of the country as large businesses. So all of us are doing different things, some in financial services, some in retail, but all brilliant things. Companies are invested in this country, its growth and its brilliance into the future. But the narrative around the country and what happens continues to be exceptionally negative. And there's a lot that we can collectively do in saying, you know, we are rebuilding roads. We have patrol as an example, working with government in a meaningful way. The narrative there is better roads means that people get to work better, means that less insurance claims, means the whole society is sort of built. So I think that each organization in the space and the place that they work in, whatever they're doing, that narrative should come to the table. Then can I just bring it to sort of at a company level, and I'm going to bring it back to employee benefits. I often talk about the fact that it is something to say we do so much for our people. The way we do for people is how we invest in our people. Employee benefits, and I'm not saying Discovery's employee benefits for your people should be an active gift and an enabler for your people. So it's not good enough to say we're such an active organization, but we have no healthcare for our people. Such an active organization, but we don't have life cover, group life cover for our people. Or if you don't have that budget, do you have funeral for your people? So I think as large organizations in society, if we can help work with those people that are already absorbed into the working world to enable, to uplift, they're able to go back into society and communities. They enable and they uplift in families and in communities. And so the circle goes. So for me, a big part of it is thinking about our employee benefits. What are they doing for our people? And can we do more in that arena? It's a structured and systematic way of giving, enabling, and elevating in the system.
It's an important lever, like you say, that that influences, or a domino that topples this circle, which then topples a bigger circle. So it's such a lovely answer, and it leads into Katlego's question, who's asked you to please share some of the mentorship initiatives that you are involved in that continue to drive and elevate your purpose.
Yeah, so within Discovery, we started what we call a platform, and we said a platform and not a movement, because a platform is one that everybody can contribute to and will change with time, with people. But we started a platform called Discovery Women Move. It was about 3 years ago. It was deliberate. The platform was around we as women within the Discovery space must be and lead the change that we want to see. Obviously partnered with the South African Exco in this instance. And the platform creates capabilities and opportunities for mentorship, both structured mentorship and broad mentorships. I wanted to share, and by the way, I don't take credit for the platform, maybe just its initiation, but women have come onto the platform, they're owning the platform, they're running with the platform. It's been incredible to actually see. But one of the initiatives and the way we've started to translate mentorship is the idea that mentorship is actually just about learning and getting something that is powerful and impactful that you can use in your own life. And we started to do it at a one-to-many basis. So we had, as an example, non-executive directors who are women with extensive, rich experience, who know the challenges in leading in a business, as well as sort of lifting through those challenges. And we started to do roundtables with them as an example. So you have women from all divisions within our business, and our business is large. So we have people from bank, health, these are all distinct businesses in the group. And they would come and they would listen to, as an example, Cindy Zilwa, who's a very experienced person from business, talking about what she went through, how she overcame, and I remember the thing about how you fake it until you make it. You show up, you put your voice in the table, even if somebody rubbishes your opinion, you show up again next week and you do it again. And so we're finding different ways, but the one-to-many idea for me appeals a lot because you can impart so much to many people. In my own personal life, I am time constrained, so I do mentorship, but it is with a select few women so that it can be more impactful, more quality rather than quantity. And I'm quite deliberate about who I do it with, what level, am I the right person to add value at that point in time to that person?
One last question, and I'm very mindful of time and people dropping off for their 3 o'clock meetings. But one last question from Success. How is technology shaping the way you deliver employee benefits, and what innovations are you most excited about?
Sure. It sounds like she was in our meeting this morning, our EXCO meeting. We actually are embracing and looking at technology in all sorts of different ways. In about 2 weeks ago, we were all in Sun City, and when I say all, sort of the actuarial and analytical fraternity of discovery from across the globe. And it is young people coming up with solutions that drive change and impact, either through product or through new solutions being brought to the fore. And what was amazing was probably 99% of all of the ideas were around technology, particularly AI and generative AI. So we are, and watch the space, I can say with pride, we are looking at using technology, one, to actively start engaging employees in their employee benefits so that they don't only know it at a certain point in time, but on an ongoing basis. But two, we're starting to use AI in how we bring meaningful insights to employers and HR divisions around what's happening in their employee base and how we can better support them. Just using data from internal to our business, as well as sort of broader research, and then synthesizing it and making it so easy to say, you know, Natalie, the risk in your business is that the prevalence of cancer is increasing rapidly in this age group, and the solution is you should think about a cancer cover that covers this fraternity in your business, just as an example. So LLMs and AI and generative AI.
LLMs and AIs, and you heard it first on EBnet. Nonku, it's been absolutely fantastic to chat to you this afternoon. Thank you very much for taking the time with us. And thank you very much to our sponsors, Discovery, for bringing us this event. Don't forget, everybody, to look on our website and see our next event on impact and sustainability and the investments around those. And we look forward to speaking to an expert panel on that. Nonku, the floor is yours for a final comment if you'd like it.
I just want to say thank you. It's such a privilege, and not only to share, but to reflect on some of the things one has been doing. We run so fast that we don't always have time to reflect. So thank you, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Nonku. We are going to close with a short video. Thank you.